Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lampard.
Welcome to the Rangers Journal.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rangers Journal on this Wednesday, the 4th of March. My name is Doug, and this is our regular Q&A show from the stands, taking on any of your questions from the chat and just using them as our board of discussion and sort of jumping off points. We're also going to have another round of Guess the Player that we did last week as well, so if you're fancying flexing your quizzing brain, then stay tuned for that. That'll sort of pop in and out throughout the show. And this evening I've got a motley crew, if ever there was one, to go through the discussions with me. First of all, co-hosting with me this evening, to my left, right, whichever direction it is, depending on which way you're facing, I've got the incomparable Mitch. How are you doing, mate?
We can go up, down, turn around, say, Dougie, I love you. You're over here.
And below Mitch, we've got Craig. How are you doing, mate?
Aye, good, mate. Good. Long day, long weekend, considering what happened on Sunday, but we're doing well.
And last, but by no means least, we've got Alan. How are you getting on?
Yeah, doing all right, mate. Yeah, just still trying to get over the disappointment of Sunday, but we'll get there.
Absolutely, we'll get there at some point. But we're going to start looking forward. So that game is now in the rear view. So we're going to start looking forward to an exciting new challenge, which is the same challenge, albeit in the quarterfinal. And it's sort of the starting off point for tonight's show is looking at the importance of this match. We are meeting Celtic, of course, again in the space of 7 days for a second time in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup, which is earlier than we usually meet them. It's been last time we met Celtic in the quarterfinals was I think it's late 2000s. Tends to be semis or finals. As I think I made, can't remember which pod it was on. I think it was one of the either the pre or post match from the weekend when I indeed made that Freudian slip and said it was referred to as the final, but no, it's just the quarter. Mitch, I'll start with yourself. You know, we've had the disappointment, obviously, of the weekend. We're now turning to face this second go around. It's a weird one because you've got the confidence of that first half that shows that we can absolutely take it to this Celtic team. We can dominate them. We can score goals. We can play really good stuff. But then that's tempered by the second half where we were really wet and ineffectual and allowed them to dominate ourselves. Where are you sitting in the sort of the confidence levels going into this quarterfinal?
I'm calm. And it sounds really, really stupid, but a lot of what went wrong on Sunday was of our own doing. It wasn't as if we were outplayed or off the park. It wasn't as if it was one of these ones where you go, right, okay, they've turned up and had an absolute shanner first half and, went around and took the Space Jam just at half time. I think our biggest problem in the second half was of our own doing, not controlling the ball enough, not making even simple passes to each other. And I think some of the stats that I was reading after the game kind of back that up of, I think we had something like a 66% pass completion rate in the second half. When you're giving away the ball 1 in every 3 passes, you're inviting danger to yourself at that point. And I think that's something that as a club, and as a team, we've seen it all too often before. I think, it's a tale as old as time where we think, the first half's been and gone, we're 2-0 up, we're coasting, and then we go and do something stupid, like not giving, the first goal should have been a wake-up call to us. And I think, it didn't serve as that wake-up call the way that most of us would have liked it to have. But equally, the penalty, and, we'll call a spade, the penalty is in fact a penalty. I'm not going to dispute that there. I know I had a bit of, in the chat, bit of ambiguity about the head-to-ball ratio, because I think still when I've watched it back, it does still hit. Now, I can't turn around and tell you it was Sterling's head, but I don't know if it was potentially a Celtic player's head before it goes to Dejan's arm. But equally, these are the rules. this is the world that we are in, the world of VAR. But, it is what it is, but we shouldn't have been in that position in the first place, for that to be conceding an equaliser after being 2-0 up.
Absolutely. That's, I think, the one thing when it comes to complaining about or having concerns about the VAR stuff at the end, Craig. Ultimately, so I can't remember who it was, but someone made a similar point to the Livingston game when there was obviously the controversy of the free kick / penalty that never was at the end of that game. There's 89 minutes or 90 minutes in case of the Celtic penalty. There's 90 minutes before that incident occurred where we should have had the game won already. Where are you sitting going into the match in terms of how you're feeling in terms of confidence wise and whether this team has the mentality to get over the line in this game?
I think you've got to believe they do. I don't know. I don't know where the complacency came from after. It shouldn't be possible for a team's level to drop from where it was in the first half to where it went in the second half. They, regardless of what they do, regardless of what changes they make, it shouldn't be physically possible for a team to go from being so strong to just so passive in the second half. But you have to try and take confidence that they will come into the game like they came into the first half and keep it up for the whole 90 minutes. You think, well, surely it's a lesson learned. They won't make that mistake again, whether it was the players taking their foot off the gas or Danny Rose said something that changed their how they were thinking. I don't know, but you have to go into it confident, knowing we've seen them take the game to Celtic. Every game we've played them this season, really. The second half of the cup semi-final, the other cup semi-final, down to 10 men, and we still come back and take it to extra time. The Russell Martin game was, it ended 0-0, so there was nothing really in that. And obviously the Wilfred Nancy game, they obviously took it to them that game, certainly in the second half. So you have to just have faith in the team that they are going to be able to do it.
Absolutely. And finally, Alan, how are you sitting? How's your faith in the squad right now?
Mixed. Before Sunday, I was worryingly not very nervous. I was more thinking we would have took care of the game on Sunday, but then was more worried about them going to St Mirren the weeks after. I think these games recently have kind of took care of themselves. I think the drop-off in the second half certainly is alarming. We just seemed to stop doing everything that we were doing well in the first half, knocking the ball about, passing and moving. We resorted to long balls for Butland and really invited Celtic onto us. I think I'm hoping Danny Rose maybe learned a wee bit from Sunday as well, as I feel there was more changes he could have made on Sunday to have helped us out in the second half. I think we had players kind of breathing out their backsides that were on the pitch for just too long, and there seemed to be a wee bit of kind of nervousness about them making changes, and it's not the first time I've seen it. But I would think, looking at our first half performance, if we can keep that up and come out again all guns blazing and show and get in Celtic's faces and show them really they're not a great Celtic team. We should not be going on Sunday fearful of anything. Sunday proved that if we get in their faces, play quick, play attacking football, direct football, we can get joy against them. I think I would be hoping he would go with Ndidi and Chermiti again. I like that pairing, the two big guys. I think that causes a hell of a lot of trouble for teams, and I thought we lost a bit when Ndidi went off on Sunday. Chermiti then seemed to be a wee bit more isolated, and I think that's where you don't really get the best out of him. But no, I get really nervous with these games. I don't like to say I'm confident or anything like that, or just kind of what will be, but I'm certainly not fearing it, put it that way.
Yeah, I think there's certainly that first half gives us enough to certainly not go into it with any fear. That's true. Just whether we can get a full 90 minutes of that first half would be nice, Rangers. Let's have a little bit of that. Okay, guys, that are in the chat, if you do have any questions for us, this is our Q&A show, so pop the questions in the chat and we'll tackle them as we get them. Make sure you put a wee question mark when you put your question in, because it adds a little extra symbol to the wee program we've got that shows us all the comments, so it makes it easier to pick them out. So if you put a question mark in, then that will make sure that gets noted. And as I say, we'll tackle any questions that you want to throw at us about either the game, Rangers, or anything else football related, or Mitch's beard, whatever you want to ask about, just fire it all in. As I said, we've also got our guess the player game, so we're going to put up the first clue for that. So the basic way this works, you'll get 5 clues throughout the show to try and guess a either current or former Rangers player, and we'll obviously bring up the answer at the end. Only Mitch and myself know the answer to this, so Alan and Craig, you two can join in with your guesses as well as we go. Just fire your guesses into the chat as and when you think of them if you're playing along. So the first one that we're popping up is clue number 1. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Alan heard there was a quiz and ran away. Alan was like, listen, I'm not playing a quiz. He's like, I've not done my homework.
Running away. So clue number 1 for this guest the player is I've won multiple league titles, Scottish Cups and League Cups with Rangers. So this is a player who has run the gamut of trophies with the club while he was there. So doesn't matter. Maybe narrow it down too much. Maybe suggest it's an older player rather than a newer player. That's probably the only thing that gets you. Give an extra clues to you already. Look at me. I'm too nice.
Trying to think there. I think Craig would have been about 3 at the time.
I mean, there's actually no. I was going to say there'd be 1 or 2 in the current squad, but maybe not with all 3 because they maybe haven't been quite around long enough. So that is depressing. Anyway, so that's clue number 1. I've won multiple league titles, Scottish Cups and League Cups. So we'll come back with another clue for that in a little bit. Right, Mitch, any questions for us?
I've got a question for yourself there, and it's interlinking to a question that Gary O's just asked as well. Obviously, with it being a cup game, what changes, especially given obviously what happened? And I'm going to start with you here, Doug, just because I feel like you've had to ask the questions, so I feel like it's nice to give you a question. Ahead of Sunday, what changes, if any, do you make to the lineup? And one of them, with it being a cup game, do you make the change of bringing Liam Kelly back into goals, or do you see it being Jack Butland continues as expected? Which, for me, I think I see Jack Butland starting, just given the magnitude of the game, but I don't think I'd be overly concerned if it was Liam Kelly either.
I can't remember off the top of my head. Has Kelly been playing the previous games in this, or is it just the League Cup? So he has been. So this is the one thing I think. Like, I'm not really. I know some people are like really against the cup goalkeeper thing, and some people don't care. Like, I don't particularly mind if someone wants to do the cup goalkeeper thing. I'm fine with that. I think this scenario is the only real problem with it is when a cup comes down to being so important because you're potentially messing up elsewhere. You kind of have that pressure to play your absolute best team. And if you're playing your best team, then you're playing Jack Butland. Now, that said, Kelly is a perfectly decent goalkeeper. So if he's in the goal at the weekend, I'm not going to be upset about it because I think he's perfectly capable. But there will just be that small percentage of me that goes, well, I was going to say one thing, 2 things. One, Butland does have the ability to pull out certain stops that I don't think Kelly would, just because, as I say, he is a better goalkeeper. And then 2, if it goes to penalties, you want Jack Butland in goal because his penalty record is ludicrous right now. He's like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 after the
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. So, but then, I mean, you could easily do the Dutch move and just sub him on to 20 seconds at the end of the game for the penalties if you want, I suppose. But I kind of feel like Butland will get the nod because it's such a big game. But as I say, me personally, I'll be happy. I'll be perfectly fine if Kelly's playing because, as I say, I've got every faith in him being able to do the job. He did a great job when he came in during Butland's off phase. So, yeah, I'm happy either way.
Craig, I'm going to point that question to yourself, but I'm going to change that out from, we'll leave the goalkeepers to the side, because, there's an argument as well that Liam Kelly needs the minutes as well just to guarantee a seat on the ticket to the World Cup, but I think there's plenty of other games throughout the season that, if Liam needs to play X number of games, there's games that we can say, do you know what, and you slide, it's no hassle. But after Sunday, is there other changes to the starting 11 that you would make to the team?
I mean, I think that John Souttar has been struggling for a while. The only issue is I don't have much faith in anyone that could come in to replace him. I don't have much faith. Certainly don't have much faith in Giga. Who else is at centre half?
I think at the moment it would be Giga, but it would really be Giga that would come in because Cornelius is still just coming back, obviously, for the layout.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I would throw Cornelius in his first game in months into a game that will be so big.
Could play Sterling centre back and play Tab on the right.
I mean, yeah, potentially, yeah. You know what? I'm not against James Tavernier starting this game. I think that bit of experience at the back might be a good idea. So that's potentially something you could go with. I'm trying to think who else. Again, I think Raskin's been struggling, but I've said before I'm not a big Diamande fan. Although saying that, my reason with Diamande is I think he can have really, really good games. I think he just has 2 and 10. But the thing with Diamande is it tends to be Celtic or big European games where he really shows up. So maybe there's a thing there because I think Raskin loses his heat too much for my liking. Raskin gets too involved with the opposition players, especially Celtic. I get it; he's up for it. He really understands the club, but I think he's really bought into that. But he's really struggled. So maybe Diamande's a move there. And the last one I'd bring up is Skov Olsen. I haven't a big player, big name player Rangers have chased for a long time. Not shown it yet. And I'm really disappointed with him because he's got a chance to get in the Denmark squad. They've got big World Cup qualifiers coming up. He's got a chance to really reboot his career after the Wolfsburg move didn't really work. And we haven't seen much yet, and time's running out for him. And Rangers are set to pay a lot of money for him, a lot of money that I don't think he's worth at this particular moment. So maybe bringing him out and playing. Mine's went blank. Bayrami. Couldn't remember his name there, but I think Bayrami.
I like you, Craig.
Every time Bayrami's came in, I think he's looked strong, especially under Danny Rowe. That little run under Danny Rowe, kind of November, December, and then he got injured, and he's came back into the squad now. I thought he was a big reason why we got back into the game at Livingston. So I think maybe he should deserve a start because Skov Olsen hasn't been performing. Certainly not for the price tag Rangers set to pay if they pay it in the summer.
That's it, Alan. I'm going to load the question to yourself there a wee bit more along the midfield itself. Obviously, we've seen that our midfield over Sunday, especially in the second half, I don't want to say lost interest, but lost a bit of focus and lost that bit of sharpness throughout that second half. And you do look at some of the players, particularly when you look at Nico. Nico's played a lot of minutes since the season started without really having the rest in between. Do you tweak what's there, or do you find space to bring the likes of Diamande in? What do you do?
It's a tricky one because I do agree that I think Raskin maybe needs a rest, but Would I do it this weekend? I'm not so sure. I do think there's scope for bringing Diomande in, and I was saying for him to come on Sunday before he did. I don't think he played that well when he came on, right enough. That's a whole other discussion, but he usually does turn up in the Old Firm games. My only concern is that if he goes with, say, for example, the three of Chukwueze, Raskin and Diomande, it's kind of taken away a lot of our width. And I thought we kind of got a bit of joy in the first half with that. I do agree with Craig's point of Scott Olsen. I would be taking him out this weekend, and I'd be looking to bring Bajrami in as well. I really like Bajrami. Even centrally, Bajrami can do a job. We've seen it last year with man marking Callum McGregor, and I can't remember what Old Firm game it was, but they took Bajrami off, and McGregor ended up coming back into the game, and I think that's when Celtic get back into the game. I think as much as Bajrami doing that job and he's good at it, though, my only concern is you kind of lose what Bajrami's good at, if you get what I mean, like with his attacking prowess and things. But I don't see what Olsen's done to start ahead of Bajrami. I'm in complete agreement with Craig, and I was saying to myself before he said it that I thought coming on the Livingston game, he completely brought us in there, and I was shocked to see him not start on Sunday there after that. So my concern is that he brings Gassama in and plays him wide right, and I don't think Gassama is suited to wide right at all. I don't think you get anything for Gassama on the right hand side. And that's my concern. So there is scope for changes, but it's how he wants to set up. If he's going to go the same kind of formation, and I think you bring Bajrami in for Olsen, and that would probably be my only change, fitness dependent. And then, but I'd be looking to bring Tav in off the bench at some point and use him and things like that. I think there was more scope on Sunday there for changes that we never done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Bajrami, is a kind of talking point there, because obviously when he came on against Livy, Doug, he obviously came on and he made a huge impact off the bench. And I think he's one of these players that he's genuinely got a right for me to maybe have a bit of a bee in his bonnet about at least not seeing some minutes at the weekend there. I think we could see it, we've seen it throughout the game of, where certain players come about the 75th minute. Some players were dying on their backsides, and, most of us were calling for reinforcements to come on. You look at the bench and you go, the most obvious replacement to come on at that stage was somebody like Baj, just to come in and take 20 minutes, bit of experience, just to calm things down as well, and just even take advantage of some of that ultra-high press that Celtic could put on at that point as well, where you go, do I want to see somebody like Bajrami up there, when the line's really, really high and there's maybe a little pocket to pick? What do you think, Jinky's got a right to feel a wee bit hard done to?
Yeah, I mean, that was my second most, sort of second biggest grievance about the game, was the fact that he didn't make any further substitutions after the first two. I thought the two he made were fine, but it felt like as he went on, there was a lot of talk about Chermiti in particular being quite tired, and I did defend him to a degree in our group chat, because I didn't think bringing on Miovski would have really helped much, because I thought even the tired Chermiti was doing a decent job, but I felt that there were other areas that we could have maybe freshened up. I would have had Tav on at some point. If nothing else, Tav would with his passing, would get the ball just away from goal really quickly and relatively easily. And then you've got the experience. Bajrami, as you say, he'd come on the weekend before to good effect. He's usually got a bit of an engine when he comes on. So he would have brought a bit of freshness into the team. And I think you could have brought him on for pretty much anyone in the midfield, and he'd have done the job, I think. So those two in particular, I think I would have liked to have seen come on to try and make a difference, because as I say, I did feel the more the game went on, I was like, well, okay, are we not going to freshen things up? Because, let's say, after a while, it was just a case of we could really use some fresh legs. Never mind any tactical tweaks or whatever else. But
I think as well, kind of going on to Tav as well, I think, there was a point in the game on Sunday there as well where you were like, especially after after Celtic got one back, you're thinking to yourself, just a bit of experience, bit of calm, just a bit of presence to the back as well, just to kind of lead the line a little bit. Somebody to go, do you know what? I've been in these trenches before. I've been there. I've done it. I've seen it. I'm relatively fresh because I've not started the game. I've got a good quality, 25, 30 minutes in the legs just now. And I think that kind of hurt us a wee bit. However, that Sunday has been. This Sunday's to come. However, our Doug still has question 2 for our guest, the player. This is where we're still trying to establish if Craig was born at this point or not.
We'll figure it out as we go. So, for those in the chat, question 2, if you weren't here for question 1, and it's on screen there as well. So we're guessing the current or former Rangers player. So clue 1 was I've won multiple league titles, Scottish Cups and League Cups with Rangers, so a winner of multiple things. And clue 2 is I'm Scottish and I've featured for the national team. So that narrows it down by 2 more steps. So you're looking at Scottish players, and Scottish players too have played for Scotland at some point. So still fairly broad at the moment, but we'll start narrowing it a bit more specifically. Come on, there we go. Congratulations to A-League prospects for our first guest of the night, or at least the first one I've seen, Chris Boyd. So we'll see if that turns out to be accurate.
Does that mean he doesn't think I was born when Chris Boyd was playing for Rangers?
Well, could be a compliment, We got a couple of guesses in there. Baron Loyal going by the first pick, Barry Ferguson. I will say the pictures are in no way connected. They're just representative of the question. I just had an awkward gap that was scratching my OCD brain when I was putting the slide together, and they needed to fill it with something, and the pictures were it. So the pictures are not specific to the outcome. But yeah, Stuart McCall. I do remember Stuart. Big fan of Stuart. He's corrected himself. Stuart McCall. So Stuart McCall is a good guess. Andy Gorham. Worth a guess, I suppose. Absolutely true. So good couple of guesses there. Let's see, we'll be back in a little bit with more questions, more clues in a little bit more. So I'll pass it back over to Mitch to fire some more questions at us.
No worries. So I think obviously, right, Sunday's been, it's happened. We've got another big, beautiful Sunday ahead of us. Alan, I'm going to pick on you now. So, what if for you, as the Cup, one of the biggest measures of success this season, given, let's be honest, domestically within the league, we're in a position that we probably don't have a right to really be in, given where things were when Danny Rule took over, and it's been through a bit of fortune, bit of a mess everywhere else, across other teams and everything else that's happened across the league. Do you think failure to go forward on Sunday does that sit more on Danny Rule, or does that sit more on the kind of as a measuring stick, for the team, or do you think this is an opportunity that the players have a chance to say, do you know what, we can derail their season completely and kind of get themselves and get their heads out their backsides?
I think I'm going to be controversial here, and I think if we were, God forbid, to get put out on Sunday, I think it's disappointment on Roll. I think he's been here a good few months now. Martin left for 7 games into the season. We're now going to have 9 games to go. I think. Yes, he's only had the one window, and the players that he's brought in does look like improving us, and I think even better going into next season. I think we'll be even better, but I think he's been in the door long enough that I don't think we can keep going back to the situation we were in under Martin. I think this is now totally different, and I think if we were to go out on Sunday, I think it would be a bit of a failure. I think when you look at the teams around about us, the state that Celtic have been in this year and things like that, I think it's a poor reflection on us if we're not able to take advantage on that. So it might be controversial. I'm not having a go at Danny Rowe. I do like him. I still think he's the man for the job. I'm not going down that line or anything like that. But I think the league's moved on now that he's done well to get us back into this position that we are, and he needs to keep taking us forward. I think if we were to get put out in the cup, I think it's a bit of a failure on his part, based on a couple of games recently when it came to the top of the games. You could argue Hibs away, Motherwell away. He's got a few of these games wrong with teams and things like that he's picked, and I think it's, if we were to go out on Sunday, I think it's heaps a lot. I'm not saying that we could call him for his head or anything like that, but I think it heaps a bit of pressure on him, definitely.
What about yourself, Doug?
I think we're on the sort of the precipice of that tipping point where, like kind of Alan said, we will start moving into more of the sort of onus going on to Roll, but there are still things that I mean, there's been a lot of people that have come out since the weekend suggesting that they've already decided Roll's not the guy and we need to shop him by the end of the season, which I think is ludicrous because he's been in the job barely 4 months, just over 4 months, which is not a considerable amount of time. He's hit his first significant bad patch of form in February. Now, and it was a significantly bad and a significant bad patch of form, which is unfortunate. And it has, there's no ways about it. That's, had a significant impact our title chances. But the thing that I'm looking at is ultimately, this is his first time hitting these issues, and they're issues that we've seen in the club for a couple of years now. So the challenge for Roll is right. That's him now hitting up against these issues for the first time. So how will he react to that? Now, reacting to that, part of that, is in-game stuff. I saw someone talking about him potentially having sort of a bit of in-game paralysis in the second half. Maybe that was the case. And I'll come back to that point in a wee second. So there's in-game stuff, but there's also the more macro of he needs to change the culture of the club, the mentality of the club to overcome the hurdles that we've been seeing the past few times. We've seen it the past few times over the past few managers, and so I think there's a tendency for us to just automatically say, Rowe's the same as Clement, he's the same as Beale, he's the same as Gio, because that's what happened with them, and therefore the default assumption, because he's now hitting up upon these issues and not getting them right very first time, some people, the default is just to go, he's the same as them, so we need to just get rid of him now. But I don't think that's fair to him as an individual. He needs to get the opportunity to overcome those. And part of that for me is to get his own full pre-season and summer window to fully, make any changes he wants to. He started to do that. Most people seem to think the players on whole that he's brought in are decent. It's only 3 signings and a loan thus far. Olsen we may or may not keep. We'll see. So, because one of the things I do think is a potential thing that's not really been touched on that I think still does apply from the previous era is how good was Martin's pre-season conditioning, and are we seeing, because there's been a few games where a lot of players have looked leggy and a bit tired, and so there are questions that I think you can ask, well, is that an impact of pre-season? Because we've seen teams in the past, Gerrard's been one of the most obvious, that were super fit, and I don't think we've really seen that level of fitness since. So is that something that he could potentially improve? Well, he won't be able to improve that until he gets that pre-season. The final part, the final part I'll make very, very quickly is that the other thing that we need to account for is that ultimately, much like Steven Gerrard was, Danny Röhl is a new manager to management. And as much as our desperation for immediate success means that we will hype the pressure on, if we're accepting Danny Röhl as our manager, we have to accept the fact that he is still a new manager and thusly may take slightly longer to make some of those improvements. So, there's a decision there with us as a club as to, are we going to give him that time, or are we going to allow our need for immediacy to not allow him to potentially grow into a great coach.
Thank you very much for that, Doug. Craig, I'm going to point a slightly different question at yourself. Don't worry, I promise I've not even got a loaded gun under here. It's fine, you're safe. This is a safe space.
Don't trust him.
I might have one. It just really depends how you take this question. You touched on earlier on about Skov and the impact that he's had, obviously, since joining the club. Now, we spoke about, obviously, in previous pods and, across the way since he's joined the club about he was going to need a run of games to get himself up to full fitness, match fitness, and everything else, obviously, with the stop-start nature of the kind of, let's call a spade, the failed move to Wolfsburg. It was what it was. There's a reason why we've got, a player that they've played, about £12 million for in the summer. There's a reason why we've got one loan at the moment, and it's not worked out. Do you think that there's an element that he's copping a wee bit of unnecessary stick at the moment? Because his first Old Firm game, he's obviously got an assist within that. At the weekend prior, obviously against Livy, and now, albeit the Livy keeper's pulled off the absolute wonder stop of his life for Romans, it was Skov who put the ball in to set that up. Do you think that actually we're maybe all being a little bit hypercritical of him purely because there's that price tag expectation that Chermiti's maybe shaken off a little bit since the summer? Obviously, Chermiti came in for a lot of money in the summer, but now that he's scored the goals in the big games, he's the big game hunter, so to speak. Do you think we're just looking to see that same reaction from Skov, or do you think because everything's getting a wee bit jittery everywhere at the moment, he's just become the easiest target at the moment?
Potentially. Potentially, but I mean, I don't know about how you feel about Chermiti, but he's not shaking the price tag stick from me. He's scored 9 goals in the league, and 8 of them have been against 2 teams. All right, we're sitting second just now, and it's against the 2 teams sitting first and third. But it's not the point. He doesn't score every week. He doesn't he doesn't put the ball in the net anywhere near the amount of times he should do. So he hasn't shaken that with me. And Skov Olsen is a guy who's came in. He's got 40 odd caps for Denmark and a fantastic Denmark team that are getting really deep into tournaments. Generally, if they make this one, they may go and do that again. I don't know. This is a guy who scored, I believe it was over 50 goals for Club Brugge in 3 seasons as a winger, which is outrageous
really
stuff.
Big numbers.
Outrageous stuff. I don't think it's wrong. My point is, I don't think it's wrong of us to expect players who come with big price tags to give us big price tag performances. If you go back to when Rangers signed Tor André Flo, Tor André Flo was seen as a flop, or certainly as far as I can tell, he was sort of seen as this sort of flop. But Tor André Flo scored his ratio was 1 goal in every 2 games. It's
insane.
I'm struggling to ask more of that from a striker. That was a guy who, in my opinion, done what he could. But if you're paying that amount of money for a player to play in the Scottish League, they've got to be Superman, or it's not going to be good enough. So, Skov Olsen and Chermiti have came with those price tags, so they now have to go out and prove it. Maybe Skov Olsen's maybe give him a little bit more time to settle in, but nah, not for me. Nah.
One thing I will say, Craig, is my Christmas card list and you might be off it any more of that slander about Chermiti. I'm just going to be saying all of that. I'll be having to see you outside of the pod anymore here. However, Alan, I've got another smoking gun for you before Doug does his wonderful third clue for guess the player. And I want just
Okay.
a relatively short answer from you. Just relatively short. And I don't mean a Doug short, where you go on for 3 years. Alan, Oliver Ant-Man, what do you do on Sunday with him? There's another smoking gun. I'm making you up tonight.
How fit is he? I mean, he didn't even make the bench on Sunday there. So, was he doing the pecking order? I mean, I thought since he's come back from his injury, he certainly looked more like the player I think we were hoping that we were getting. I would have definitely had him on the bench as an option.
I believe, if memory serves me right, and again, I'm not getting any younger, but I think at the weekend he was ruled out because he wasn't well. He was just ruled out just with a sickness bug.
Well, I definitely have him involved. Whether I start him or not, I don't know. I still think if I was dropping Scovolson, I'd be starting Bajrami ahead of Ant-Man, but he would definitely be on my bench for an option, especially maybe later on, for example, when the game's stretched. I think that suits Ant-Man even more when he's got space to run with the ball. He's not a winger that's going to take the ball always back to goal and things like that. So I think he'd be a good option from the bench, but I wouldn't be starting him.
Do you think there's a world where we go a little bit wider than the 4-2-2-2-2, or however many twos we're chucking in here? Do you think there's a world that you put Mikey Moore more in the middle and let Oliver Ant-Man go back out wide left, where he does for Finland and he has done since coming back from the injury, which lets Mikey Moore go and be a wee menace in the middle and just getting about it like he likes to, while having a natural wide player in a wide position?
I do like Moore central. I think Moore gives you so much more when he is central. When he's direct and he's running it, defences and things like that, I think that's when Mikey Moore's at his best. I don't think he's a wide man. I really don't. I think he plays well as like a kind of a number 10 and behind the strikers and things like that. And I think that's where we've been getting the best of him. I would like to see it. I just can't see Roll doing it on Sunday.
Excellent. Well, Doug, without any further ado, I'm going to stop pointing a smoking gun at Alan and Craig for a minute before they both batter me outside. Doug, are you ready with clue number 3 of Guess the Player?
Indeed. We're getting on a bit, so I'm going to throw everyone clues 3 and 4 at one time.
Treat.
So exactly. So, just for anyone who has missed it, clue 1 was I've won multiple league titles, Scottish Cups and League Cups with Rangers. Clue 2 was I am Scottish and I featured for the national team. Clue 3 is in addition to Rangers and among others, I have featured for Dunfermline and Cardiff City, 2 other teams that this player has played for. And clue 4 is at key moments, I was a pivotal player during Walter Smith's second spell. So that hopefully narrows that down the time frame for you a little bit, as well as some other teams there. So depending on how your knowledge is of players for other teams, and we'll come back just before the end with the final clue for you there. So the 2 extra clues there. In addition to Rangers, I've played for Dunfermline and Cardiff, amongst others. And at key moments, I was a pivotal player during Walter Smith's second spell. So we've got another guess from Brian Lively of Chris Burke. It's a good shout, right kind of area there. So yeah, we'll come back to that at the end with the answer.
Now, I've noticed here in the comments, Gary's been a busy wee boy here in the comments, and he's got lots and lots of thumbs here. What I'm not seeing from our Gary is a guess about who the player is. So I'm putting the prospect on you there. I'm putting the scope, Gary. What's your guess? Come let us know. Oh, we've also got a guess of Stevie Thompson and Davy Weir in there.
Different possibilities. I'm seeing them there. Thompson and Davy Weir as well. So you got a question to close us up with?
I do. So ahead of Sunday and all things, we park Sunday to what it's going to be. ahead of Gary, Gary, you've got plenty of good clues here. This sounds like a skill issue if you can't make a guess here. But I think ahead of Sunday, what do you think is going to constitute a full performance, a full 90-minute performance? And I'm assuming that we're going to win it, as we all want to happen there. But in terms of from first to last, what do you guys want to see happen from the team there? Alan, I'm going to start off with yourself.
I want to see us come out. I want to see us go for it. I want to see us with that first half attitude that we had on Sunday. I just hope we can last longer than 50 minutes. I think that Celtic team are there to be got at. And I just think if it does get to the stage that players are tiring, the role is going to be ready to make changes when required, and not have us running on empty. I think you go with your strongest starting 11, whether it's the Cup with Kelly or Butland, and I think you go out and try and win it. Hopefully there'll be goals in it again. And I just think the best, our defence, as much as we had a good defensive record for a while, is still the weakest part of our team, and I think our best way is by just basically attacking teams, and hopefully Shamiti has another blinder.
Craig, what about yourself? Don't worry, Doug, I'm going to let you have the last word as always.
Every Old Firm game's won in the midfield. You have to control the midfield. This is why I really like the 4-2-2-2, if you want to call it that, because the two guys playing 10 can come and cover that sort of midfield area that the first two kind of would struggle to by themselves, and kind of create that box midfield. But yeah, to me, it's all every Old Firm game's always won in the midfield battle. You have to win that in both, physically battling and skillfully on the ball.
It's a nice balance between blood and thunder and actually just move the ball about properly.
Yeah, exactly. It thwarts everything they've got because, as everyone's said before, you man mark Callum McGregor, you can neutralise Celtic because so much goes through him. So if you can stop the area, if you can stop him in that area, then you're going to stop an awful lot of Celtic's attacks. And also just be aware of what Celtic do, because we've seen Celtic plenty of times this, certainly since Martin O'Neill came back, have a poor first half, make a few changes and end up winning the game, or end up with a draw when it looked as if they were running on nothing. So just be wary of what they may do. The guy, I can't remember his name, the winger that came on, Tunekti, that's his name. He comes on the pitch at half-time almost every game and is one of their strongest players. He must just be one of these guys that's great coming off the bench. I don't know how many times I've seen it happen. Just be wary that could happen. I actually believe he started the game that they're playing just now. But he comes off the bench so much. Just be a little bit smart about how they are going to approach the game. But the big thing is the midfield.
Absolutely, thank you very much for that, mate. I think for myself, and don't worry, Doug, I'm coming to you just before you get upset with me. But I think the big thing for myself is from minute one, I want to see the players be angry at themselves from what happened at the weekend before. Somebody just to go in there and say, okay, we put ourselves in that position last weekend, we will not do that again. And I don't care if that's somebody putting in a cracking, big, strong tackle that's legal, or somebody just making that first mazy run that makes a fool out of somebody from the other team. Just somebody to go out there and say, we're hurting, we want to show we want to give us a reason to get up off the seats and believe in why the wrongs will be written or righted, whatever the right word may be. I'm sure Doug will correct that for me. But I just want to kind of see that from start to finish at the weekend is nobody dropping the head and nobody dropping the standards throughout the game. But Doug, what about yourself? And then obviously we can fire off into the final clue, and then we can get the who's behind Doug's lucky box.
So my thoughts on the game. I would start with the same team, and basically, I feel that I actually feel it's really easy. Roll just picks the same 11 and says, "Do what you did last weekend, but longer." Just do what you did but last weekend, but don't stop. Pick the same team, get them to do the same thing, and then hopefully, he's had the weekend to reflect on the changes he did make, what changes he could well have made. I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but the main thing I think I'd have done, especially after Celtic got their goal, was I would have put on Tavernier, but went with 3 at the back, and then played Tavernier and Romans as wing backs, so that we still had attacking onus. Tavernier could drift into the middle like he has a tendency to do anyway, which would give us an extra body in midfield, but you'd have the back 3 to be a bit more solid, and try to basically smother Celtic, and then you could still bring on Gassama later on to have that pace and hopefully break like he did against Hearts. So that would be my kind of game plan and thoughts going into that. Okay, we've had a few guesses going on, which has been really great. It's been really fun to watch you guys. I've been bringing up your guesses and things as the guys have been chatting as well. So we'll get the final clue coming up now. So your final clue is I am a goalkeeper. So I've clues in their totality. If you haven't guessed yet or you want to change your guess, then do throw it into the comments now. I've won multiple league titles and Scottish Cups and League Cups with Rangers. I am Scottish and I've featured for the national team. In addition to Rangers and amongst others, I've featured for Dunfermline and Cardiff City. At key moments, I was a pivotal player during Walter Smith's second spell, and I am a goalkeeper. So those are your 5 clues for guess a player. So if you want to put, as I say, any last minute guesses into the chat, or if you've made a guess already but want to change your mind after that clue, then throw it in. I'll say thank you to Mitch, Craig and Alan for joining us this evening, and Mitch for co-hosting along. Pedro Mendes, that's a bold guess. I remember goalkeeper Pedro. It was a great time. Very agile. So yeah, thanks to the guys for joining us. Thanks to our sponsor, Bluebells Bar at Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote. If you're out in that neck of the woods, do give them a shout. Tell them the Rangers Journal sent you. You can have a great night, either in the sun or in the shade, watching not just the football, but more importantly, all the Rangers games which they have on there. So thank you to them for sponsoring as always. So down to the answer. I did see a few people guessing Alan McGregor, which is a good guess. Great Scotsman, Antti Niemi. I remember him well. Good goalkeeper as well. I get some good guesses in at the end. I'm liking it. But
behave yourself in the comments, there, son.
But so the answer to the question is Neil Alexander. So I saw a few guesses of Alan McGregor, which is very close, and does in fact meet all of those clues, almost as if I deliberately tried to mislead you. But yes, the answer is Neil Alexander. So Neil Alexander, he has won 4 league titles with Rangers, 3 Premier and 1 championship. He's got 2 Scottish Cups and 3 League Cups. I didn't realise he'd won quite that much. But yeah, he's got a good little, and indeed was a pivotal part in quite a few of those cups as well.
He taught Scott Carson everything he ever needed to know.
He's
UEFA Cup final starter, wasn't he? Because McGregor was injured.
He did well on one of the a very particularly worded clue for to say at key moments, because he wasn't necessarily a pivotal player the entire time, but he came in not just in the final but in the semi-final against Fiorentina. He came in as McGregor was injured there, and indeed saved one of the penalties against Fabio Liverani. He saved one of the penalties that obviously helped to get us through that tie. He also came up in the Scottish Cup final. He played in that. He came back into the team to help us in the run into the double after McGregor's infamous suspension alongside Barry Ferguson, and also for the League Cup as well. So he came in at key moments, at key times when we needed him to step up, and he did so with good skill. So big shout out to him there. He played for Dunfermline and Cardiff. He was on Cardiff was his other big, or in fact his main club really. He played for. I can't remember if it was over 200, certainly over 100 appearances. So played for them quite a long time. And McGregor had a loan there as well. And obviously both played for Dunfermline. So well done to everyone for having some guesses in there, some good guesses. I'll give a half point to anyone who said Al McGregor. As I say, that was where I was trying to lead you. So a bit mean there, but yeah. Hopefully you had a little bit of fun with that one. And so say that brings us to the end of tonight's Q&A. We've got our usual news show tomorrow at 12, so do tune into that. The guys will
Friday
go
at 12. Thank you, Doug.
Friday? Oh, of course, this is Thursday. This is Wednesday. Yeah. I'm confused because Q&A is usually on a Thursday. In fact, tomorrow night, we've just announced earlier today, we have a scouting special for you. The scouting department's first ever live show. So do tune in and support the guys for their first live show. The scouting guys do amazing work with pre-recorded videos, putting up loads of stuff on potential players and interesting things on the channel in general. And this is their first live show, so you can tune into that tomorrow at 8:30. They're going to be looking at who our new right back could be, as well as sort of doing a little bit of back and forth and talking about sort of just player analysis in general and the kind of stats that they look at and what they mean when they're talking about them, as a little kind of just educational thing for those that maybe aren't that stats orientated and you want to know a little bit more about it. They will do that. So that's coming up tomorrow. Then on Friday, there is the news show at 12 that you can tune into before at the weekend. We've got the pre and post match for the cup game. So we will see you then. Thanks again for tuning in, for joining in, and for chatting with us. And remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Cheers.